Today's topic is Dama, the second treasure. Dama literally means natural withdrawal of senses. But if we do not understand it clearly, that Dama becomes a kind of suppression, repression, reaction, and that is not good in the life of a seeker. So, what we have done when we use the mind, what happens? It is always impulsive, instinctive, habitual. It is seeking a comfort zone. And then what happens? The life moves to prayers. What I like, what is pleasant to me. When we use the mind, or you say that when the mind is working on us, it makes us over busy, overactive, or lazy. We will understand and link it with the Rajo and Tamo Guna later. Simply listening, we have three gunas. Uh, it doesn't work that way. So when we use the intellect, it comes forward, takes over the mind, and then we start living in Shreyas. Now I think you are familiar with these words. Shreyas, what is right and good. And that is a knowledge. We all have an intellect, I feel, I suppose. So if we use that intellect, that shines with the knowledge first, and that knowledge is testified by viveka, the discernment and dispassion. Our main topic is to how to become a seeker. And the seeker always succeeds. Now, have you seen the fox and the birds make a lot of noise? But when a lion roars, everyone becomes calm. They run away. A seeker is a lion who roars. How he roars, that is very important. Always keep that knowledge in the mind. So when people say they are number one, the seeker says, I am one whole reality. We don't run in the race to become number one. We are already one inside. Are you getting it? I am one whole reality. I am the real self. That knowledge instantly shines. Now see the opposite. You become number one, someone take over your place. So you are always scared. And when I'm one reality, one whole reality. Those who know the computers, the hard drive needs defragmentation periodically. I learned it from my son that you have to defragment your hard drive periodically. Why that means? Defragmentation so that you have an empty space. When the hard drive becomes unorganized, when it becomes unorganized, when the mind is working on us. So defragmentation is required. That is what we are becoming a seeker. We need a defragmentation of the mind to have an empty space within to realize that we are essentially one reality. This knowledge should never be taken over by the impulsive nature of the mind. And once that happens, we wake up in the morning. Why should I promise? The Eastern wisdom, our master promises that you are settled in calmness. Thus, that seeker never feels that he is divided between the stress and the silence, between the suffering and the solace. This is what is discernment and dispassion. Self inquiry. Do you remember self inquiry with discernment? Simple inquiry. Science is doing a simple inquiry. They don't know anything about an object. When they discover, they don't have any confusion. We have a lot of confusion that who am I? Am I the body? Am I the mind? Am I the intellect? Am I the ego or something else? So that to remove that confusion, we need self-inquiry with discernment. Another point that needs to be thought of when you start thinking. When we say the real self is unknown, it does not mean that it will never be known. What it means? It is unknown means it is yet to be known because we do not know. It can be known. When you say unknown, when we use the word unknown, okay, when it cannot be known, then why should I make an effort? Then you cannot become a seeker. Another point that we have understood, the knowledge in the intellect, behavior in the mind, follows by 6 treasures. So when you follow discernment, knowledge shines in the intellect. It breaks the knots of likes and dislikes. It breaks the knot of pain and pleasure. It breaks the knot of that blame, complaint, and reaction. So that leads to dispassion. That is what we have understood. So the knowledge and the behavior, we start bridging the gap between the two. So when you bridge the gap, there is still misalignment left. And that misalignment is taken care by the 6 treasures. So that is what we are learning. 6 treasures of the mind. Now understand another point. 6 treasures of the mind and mind by default. There are 2 ways to understand the mind by default in modern life. What is that mind by default? Blame, complaint, reaction to become number one, creating just anger, hesitation, overactive, over busyness, etc. That is one way to understand mind by default in the modern life. When we understand mind by default in Eastern wisdom, I'm just giving an example. That natural state of the mind is 90% made up of satoguna, 7% made up of rajoguna, and 3% made up of tamoguna. So now how to understand that? So when we say that mind by default in Eastern wisdom is made up of satoguna, it means 90% mind by default is seeking knowledge and happiness. So when the knowledge seeking happiness, your mind withdraws with it. It is natural according to the Eastern wisdom, but it is unnatural according to our modern mind because we seem to be more intelligent than our masters. Now see that when the Rajo and Tamoguna, Rajoguna means likes, dislikes, activity, Tamoguna means opposing the right knowledge. Now that is what is now 90% in the mind. And that is the cause of all our suffering in our life, anxiety, duality, conflict, etc. It's a long list. So there is a misalignment. So Sama is the first treasure that we have covered last week. Sama means peace, inner calm, equanimity, mastery over the mind. And what is this mastery over the mind? Simply the mastery over the ways the mind is thinking, mind is expressing. So Sama filters out likes and dislikes. Sama filters out blame, complaint, and reaction. So you have that confusion is gone now. What is that confusion? You are responsible for my stress. That confusion is gone. So what happens to the mind? That mind starts, I'm responsible for my confusion. Let me examine, take over, relax. That is why the Sama is the first treasure. Sama is the first treasure. So just think of it, inner calm, equanimity, mastery over the mind simply means the way I am thinking. If I am thinking in line with the knowledge, what is right and good, where is the problem? Where is the problem? I studied one research paper long back, I think 15 years ago. It was published in Japanese journal. They said that we are always in hurry, we are always busy. And then they studied those people who do the things with the relaxation and calmness. That is what the Sama is. They are able to do complete their work much faster than those people who say, I mean, no, 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 I have to rush and I have to do all these things. Long back, I don't remember the nature of that paper where it was published in Japanese journal. Now come the Dama. Dama is changing the perception by senses lovingly, if I define that. Dama is a practice where you change the perception of senses lovingly, not by force. Many people translate Dhamma as sensory control. You cannot control the sense organs. How? Say, for one example, the mind says, I hate you. Anyone. Example. Now I close my eye. Can the hatred go away? Hatred is still there. Mind creates that image of hatred even if I don't see you through the eyes. Very important to understand. It is not a sensory control. How can we control eyes when open and perceive what is in front of my eyes? My eyes are open. I see everyone. Can you control your eyes seeing me when your eyes are open? No. By default, I see. So, first thing to know, so go little deeper. We always see, look into our mirror. So, that mirror is one sided. The opposite side is opaque. That's why I'm able to see. Same way, these sense organs are one sided windows. They do not open inside, they always open outside. Mind is working behind the senses when we perceive anything recognized by the mind. How it is recognized by the mind? By a thought. I see you. And then what the mind says? You are Kate, you are Lara. But without the sense organ, I do not recognize. But everything is processed by the mind. First thing, sense organs open only to the world to gain knowledge. That is why senses, that is what we say perception. Five sense organ, five objects of perception. I'm not going there. Now ask your eyes, do you like someone or dislike someone? These sense organs are neutral. Who makes it crazy? Mind. The mind gives the interpretation. Do you see that? I don't want to see his face. Why? Are you special? It is the mind that is giving the interpretation. So sense organ, first thing, are one-sided windows. They are used for as an instrument of knowledge, but it is the mind that gives the interpretation. So the mind and the sense organ, their relationship needs to be understood, and so that we can have a Dama. Sense organ do not know likes and dislikes, pain and pleasure, profit and loss, divorce and marriage. They do not know. It is when the mind gives its interpretation based on its own likes and dislikes, then we color our sense organ. And this coloring is craziness. This coloring is blame. This coloring is reaction. This coloring is over busyness. This coloring causes the pain, suffering in our life. So, this coloring, one way to say this is misalignment between the knowledge and the behavior. And that misalignment between the knowledge and the behavior is removed by Dama. Did you get it? Did you understand it? Because we have always been working as a seeker, we have been working on the mind by discernment and dispassion and sama. Now comes the Dhamma. Even if the mind is relaxed now, and the mind hates someone who appears in front of you, so there is a relationship between the sense organ and the mind. That is why the Dhamma is required. How to do that? What to do that? Ask yourself. Should I close my eyes if someone comes whom I hate or love? Not possible, because it is the content of the mind. Do you see the misalignment? Sense organ perceives the objects of the world by default. Mind gives the interpretation. So, what is that misalignment between the knowledge and the behavior? Removed by Dhamma. Question comes, how to apply this discernment and dispassion? So, once we have applied, we realize that still I have those moments of reaction, blame, and complaint. How to get out of it? So, Dhamma is here. So, what Dhamma? We say Dhamma, cultivate new habits and replace old habits. That is the solution. What it means? We cultivate new habits in the mind and replace old habits. What it means? We channelize sensory perception. That is Dhamma. But senses are active during waking state. There should be something in the mind to change its perception. Did you get it? Let me repeat it. A solution is to cultivate new habits in the mind, old habits to be replaced. We means what? We channelize sensory perception is the mind. Do you see that how deeper the Eastern psychology is? Compare it with any any treatment given in modern psychology. So we channelize sensory perception. I'm changing my way of presenting because we have to. We all are seeker, but senses are active during the waking state. There should be something in the mind to change its perception. Practical example: I see you. What it means by channelizing? I see you. Mind says, mind hates, mind dislikes, or mind is attached. What it means by channelizing here? Can you think of it? It means I'm not seeing any object or person or thing or any event for my desire fulfillment. Then what should I do? Another step of channelizing. I see everything in the world manifesting from the real self. That is the highest state of Dama. But what is the practical way? How to change that perception? Let me give you a lot of examples. There are hundreds of examples. Have you seen the images of goddess? We have a goddess of wealth. We have a goddess of goddess of knowledge. We have a goddess of power. Many beautiful images of women epitomized as goddess of wealth, knowledge. Image of a woman. Image of a woman in a bar and in a temple. Image is the same. Women is the same. Channelize the sensory perception. That is why we have, I would say, 33 million gods and goddesses in their images. Instantly, we say goddess of knowledge. Does your mind trigger a sense of pleasure seeking? No. That is what the channelizing is. Now apply this in your daily life. The moment you wake up, you see and meet every person. Can my mind perceive? Can my mind perceive through a thought, through a feeling, not for desire fulfillment, but as an epitome of that existence, that real self? And you will see in a week the mind changes. Whether it is your honey outside, whether it is your son or a daughter or a teacher or anyone. So the mind releases the idea and the impression of desire fulfillment, and it is replaced by knowing that reality is pervading everywhere. Put an argument that I'm better, what I'm, that is what you are better, days after days, months after months, weeks after weeks. We are doing the same stuff. Honey, you don't agree with me, and I don't agree with you. My perception remains the same for 30 years, ends up in divorce. My mind perceives differently with the likes and dislikes reaction, even though you are giving me benefit. But because my mind has a wrong channel, what happens? The time comes, I break up with you, and later on I repent because I'm not being benefited by you. This is happening every day in our life. Powerful Dhamma. That is the beauty of this Dhamma. Sama, we have learned, relaxation, calmness, mastery over the mind means the ways of the thinking. So when we have changed the ways of the thinking, then we use that different pattern of a thinking that everything I perceive through the sense organ is a manifestation of that real self. I channelize. So what happens? Now your sense organ perceives the beauty. I'll give you one aspect. So there is a literature that there may be uh, maybe around 50 or 60 books that, so to channelize that, these texts speaks of the word upasana. We will talk about it in detail, but I just gave you a practical example. I used to go to my workplace in India from my house in a bus in early days. Long back, I would say in 81, 82, 83, 84, 85. I used to travel by bus. I used the one mantra, Shantoham. And while sitting, while sitting in the bus, I used to sit, got a ticket, and I used to do it Shantoham, 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 but looking the piece in Shantoham. What I said, cultivate new habit, replace the old habit. I did it for at least 3 years, and after 3 years, after I think 5 or 6 months, my eyes are closed, but my mind triggers me. Now, next stop is your office. I used to open my eyes. The mind has become so much aware, so much aware. And I never knew how many people sit in the bus. What is it? I did it for at least 3 years. Shantoham, Shantoham. One day we will do that Karmala practice. It is known as Karmala. So this is one example of Upasana. We will go a little deeper into the Upasana, but understand Upasana, Upanishad. The word means sitting nearby real self. One is peace, one is calmness. Sitting nearby the teacher, sitting nearby the real self, sitting nearby the peace, sitting nearby, who is sitting nearby? The mind. Shantoham. So internally, maybe you can try, then we will do. You can try, mind says, I hate this guy, I dislike this guy. So when that guy comes before you or girl comes before you, internally you try Shantoham, peace, cultivating new habit. Why it is harming me. So we'll understand this upasana uh, in detail in our next session. Let us start our practice now.